Should you buy a condo? How big of a deal are HOA fees anyway? In this video, I'll be covering all the pros and cons of buying a condo. And spoiler alert, there are a lot more cons than pros in my opinion. It's actually right there in the name, condo. And you want to make sure you watch until the end to hear my #1 biggest con because it's a huge deal. You do not want to buy a condo without hearing this. But if you get to the end of this video and still want to buy a condo, then I hope you'll do so feeling fully informed of all the risks involved so you can make the best decision possible. My name is Michael. I own a local real estate brokerage here in the Dallas area. And if you're looking to make a move here, whether it's next week or next year, I'd love to connect. I've helped every one of these yellow dots find their little piece of Texas, and I'd love to help you too. Just call, text, or shoot me an email. All that is in the description below. Okay, let's start with our short list of pros. Obviously, in a condo, you have lower maintenance. You don't have to worry about the lawn or the landscaping. All the common spaces are taken care of. Maybe you get some nice amenities like a swimming pool or a community room. And all that is really nice, but of course you're paying that in the HOA fees. Another pro is that generally condos are built in the same areas where apartments would be built, which means you've got access to public transit, walkability to shops and restaurants. Maybe you're close to sporting or event centers. And this is really the main reason that I would recommend buying a condo. If you're just really wanting to live that downtown lifestyle, then most likely a condo is going to be your only option other than an apartment, which of course, buying an apartment is just throwing money away. Another pro is that your insurance is going to be a little bit cheaper, and that's because a large portion of the insurance is shared with everyone. That's called the blanket insurance. It covers things like your roof and the exterior of the structure. So you get to share that expense with everyone, so it's a little bit lower. Another pro is that your utilities are generally a little bit cheaper, and that's because your unit is usually insulated. So you may have another unit above you and some on the sides, and that insulation will help lower your heating and cooling bills. Another thing that seems like a pro is that the sales price appears to be cheaper than homes. And I'm saying appears to be, but we'll get into that in a minute. Basically, it's an easier lifestyle, but of course, you're paying for all of that ease of lifestyle in the HOA fees. But it is your best shot at living the downtown lifestyle without throwing all of your money away into an expensive apartment. Okay, that's it for the pros. Let's move on to the cons list. And I promise my goal here is not to scare you away from buying a condo, but there are a lot of risks that I don't think a lot of buyers are aware of. So I just want to make sure you're fully informed before you make such a big decision. The first con, of course, is the HOA fees. Like we talked about, they cover the general maintenance, maybe some amenities like swimming pools. You might get a gate for some added security. So you already know what the HOA covers, but what you might not have known is that you have practically no control over these HOA fees. Most HOAs are managed by a management company whose salary you pay in your HOA fees, by the way. And in general, the older your building and as your building ages, your HOA fees are gonna go up, and there's not really a way around this because as your building gets older, you're gonna need to build up more and more reserves for when one of the major systems finally fails. So if you live in an older building and it has cast iron plumbing, you're gonna have to start saving up. The entire condo association, everyone is gonna have to participate in building up the reserves because those cast iron lines are gonna have to be replaced for however big your complex is. And this can easily be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So any older system, whether it's plumbing, whether it's foundation, whether it's electrical, your roof, the older your building gets, the more you have to be saving up for that stuff, the higher your fees are gonna go. It's not uncommon at all here in Dallas, like in the Oak Lawn area, to see old condos that are selling for $300,000, but they have an $850 or more a month HOA fee, just because it's an old building. So as the building gets older, you can expect your HOA fees to go up. But now let's talk about the next con. Now we're going to talk about just how big of a deal it is that HOA fees go up when it comes to affordability. And this is what I was saying earlier, where the pricing of condos is tricky. They appear like they're priced lower than homes, but that's often because they kind of have to be in order to sell because the HOA fees are so high. So here's kind of a practical example of what we were just talking about, a $300,000 condo with an $850 a month HOA fee. So how does the HOA fee affect your sales price? Buying a $300,000 condo with an $850 a month HOA fee, you'd have about the same monthly payment as if you were buying a $420,000 house with no HOA. So it's a big factor for resale. And that's why I'm saying the pricing is tricky, that they seem less expensive, but when it comes to monthly affordability, they're not. So would you rather buy a $300K condo with an $850 a month HOA fee, or for the exact same monthly payment, could you find a pretty comparable $420,000 home that's a little bit out of the city, but it has a yard, it has more space, maybe it's in a nice walkable neighborhood. So this is the choice your buyers are making. They're not comparing a $300,000 condo to a $300,000 home. They're comparing a $300,000 condo to a $420,000 home. And the other downside to HOA kind of capping the sales price is that it also limits the upside of your investment. Everyone knows that the big money that's made in housing is on the appreciation. So in this scenario, let's say the whole market goes up 10%. Well, your $300,000 condo only gained $30,000 in appreciation, whereas your $420,000 house would have gained $42,000 in appreciation. So you would have missed out on that, even though you're paying the exact same monthly payment for both. But owning a condo, it might even get worse than that, because within that time period, while things were appreciating 10%, your HOA fees might have gone up even more, which then would push your sales price down even lower, because again, it's all about affordability for buyers. The more the HOA fee goes up, the less they'll be able to pay on the sales price. If that's confusing to you, just leave a comment. I'll be happy to try and explain better. And another con, as I mentioned earlier, you have almost no control over your HOA fees. So let's say your HOA decides it's time to repaint the whole condo complex. Well, in order to do that, they'll probably put a special assessment on your fees. For example, they might say over the next 5 years, your HOA fees are gonna go up $250 a month to pay for this new paint job. After that, they'll go back down. We'll pretend it never happened. But what if you were planning to sell your condo next month? This is a real example that happened to one of my clients. Let's say you could have sold your condo for $400,000 based on other comps in the area, but now suddenly your HOA fees are $250 a month higher than all of your competitors. Now, if I told you you can either buy this condo or you can get one across the street that's very similar for $250 a month less, which one are you going to buy? Of course, the one that's $250 a month cheaper. Because again, the main concern for buyers is always, what is my monthly payment? In this particular scenario, I had my sellers offer to pay all 5 years of that special assessment. So it came out to $15,000, but we were able then to compete with the other condos in our area at a similar price. So in this scenario, just because the HOA decided it's time to repaint the complex right now, it made it harder for my clients to sell their condo, and it cost them 15 grand, and that's entirely out of their control. If they would have just sold a month earlier, they would have been able to walk away with an extra 15 grand. But it gets worse than all of this. Here is my absolute biggest con for owning a condo. Have you ever heard the phrase non-warrantable? This is a big one. What you need to know about this is if your condo becomes non-warrantable, people can't buy your condo with a traditional mortgage anymore. It means Fannie Mae has deemed your complex too risky. So you've now eliminated 99% of your buying pool. Whoever's willing to buy your non-warrantable condo is likely going to have to put 15 or 20% down or more, and their interest rate is likely going to be at least 1% worse than if they could have used a traditional mortgage. So who would be willing to take on such an expensive loan? Well, it's probably going to be an investor or a cash buyer. And what kind of properties are investors and cash buyers looking for? The cheapest deals they can find. So your only remaining potential buyers are those looking to pay bottom dollar. But how likely is this? What could possibly make a condo non-warrantable? It sounds like a really big deal, like something huge has to happen. Well, it doesn't take much, and here are a few possibilities. If 50% of the units in your complex are not owner occupied, that means they're used for rentals or Airbnbs or they're vacant, boom, you're non-warrantable. If a single person or business entity owns more than 2 units in a development of less than 20 units, boom, non-warrantable. Did you hear that? If any person owns more than 2 units, you now can't sell your condo to most buyers. Another one is, if more than 15% of your neighbors are more than 60 days delinquent on their HOA fees, boom, non-warrantable. You heard that right. If enough of your neighbors get behind on their HOA fees, you now can't sell your condo. Another really big one is if your HOA is party to a lawsuit. One very common example of this is suing the builder. 3 years down the road, your roof may be leaking, your foundation may be cracking, any number of things. Again, any of these issues over an entire complex is easily hundreds of thousands of dollars. So your options are raise the HOA fees way up to pay for this, or sue the builder who should have done it right in the first place. So of course, nobody wants to pay for the builder's mistakes out of pocket, so you sue the builder. Boom, your condo is now non-warrantable. And lawsuits can take years to settle. I actually had this happen once where there were 5 buildings in this complex. 4 of the buildings were perfectly fine and 1 was having serious foundation issues. Because of that one building that was totally unrelated to my seller's unit, they got into a lawsuit, my seller's condo became non-warrantable. So even though my seller's building was perfectly fine, the other building caused them to become non-warrantable. Again, if any one of these things I've described, which are all completely out of your control, happens, it will become very difficult to sell your condo. So to recap, if you buy a condo, you're taking on a lot of risks that are out of your control. You'll probably see less appreciation because HOA fees will hold down your sales price. Your HOA fees can and likely will increase over time, and any number of things can cause your condo to become non-warrantable, and then you're in big trouble. But you'll be close to a downtown area, you'll have the walkability, so there you go. For more positive and inspirational content like this, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.